Hey, we're glad you're here today. Okay, you guys are chatterboxes today. That's good. I like that. Just not during church, okay? All right, so actually, some response would be good today. Listen, we are so glad that you're here this morning. Thank you. I know we got others that are kind of getting things ready for our lunch, and then there's still others that'll be rolling in, but we need to get started, and we need to praise the Lord. Amen? So have you ever asked for something and not got it? Has that ever happened to you? I mean, think about it. You begged and begged your parents. You tried to preempt the whole, that old saw between wants and needs, right? Who needs to hear that? Nobody needs to hear that. You pled, I need it. I need it. So, and look, your reasoning was solid. Everybody has one, right? Good reasoning. And like Ralphie in A Christmas Story, anybody Christmas Story fans here? Okay, good. Like Ralphie in A Christmas Story, you strategically place hints that are impossible for your parents to ignore, dropping them like lead weights in the middle of conversations. Or more subtly, by texting them pictures that portray how complete your life will be if you just had that latest iGizmo 22 device. Now listen, if you're at the top of your game, your game, you're even going to send them web links to articles that are written by experts that are going to help build your case. And listen, you might even get a few of your friends involved by by getting them to share testimonials that provide anecdotal evidence of how it's changed their lives for the better. The day comes, and nothing. Or it wasn't exactly what you asked for. It's a cheaper knockoff. Or instead, it's not the iGizmo 22, it's the iGizmo 5. Right? So lame. Way to go, Mom. Way to go, Dad. So what's your reaction when you don't get what you want? What's your reaction? Disappointment? Frustration? Do you write your parents off? Do you say, you've ruined my life by not getting me the iGizmo 22. You've ruined my life, and I'm never asking you for anything ever again. Right? Is that what you did? So what does this have to do with faith? You guys already know. You already connected the dots, and you're going, oh boy. It's going to be one of those sermons, and you better believe it's going to be one of those sermons, okay? Look, when we pray, we're asking God, our Heavenly Father, our perfect Heavenly Father, right? We're asking God to intervene. We're asking Him to provide. We're asking Him to help meet our need. But what happens when He doesn't deliver the way we think that He should? What happens when He doesn't perform like we think would be best for us? I don't get it. I don't get it. I was counting on God. I really believed. I was bearing down on my belief. I was clinging to I trusted God, and He did not come through. Now, you might be surprised, or not, that I've heard that many times over the years as a pastor. But I believed. But I trusted. But I had faith to believe. Why didn't God come through? Here's something you may not know about the heroes of faith. Now listen, this is the heroes of faith, right? Hebrews chapter 11 is where we've kind of been camped. That's the thread through this whole series. So you may not know this about the heroes of faith. Hebrews 11:39, this is what it says. Well, I better read it, right? Okay, you don't want me to wing this one. Listen to this. It says, all these people earned a good reputation. Talking about the heroes of faith. All these people earned a good reputation because of their faith. Right? That sounds great, doesn't it? Yet none of them received all that God had promised. For God had something better in mind for us, so that they would not reach perfection without us. For God had something better in mind. Look, when we pray in faith to God, He may very well have something better in mind than what you're praying for. That iGizmo 22, that thing that you think that you really need, that thing that you believe will change your life, may not be what's best for you. So can you trust God with his answer? Can you trust God's sovereignty over your circumstances? Can you trust him beyond this immediate need, beyond this moment? Can you trust God with your future? Okay, so you see where we're going today? Okay, anybody uncomfortable yet? Okay, don't worry, you'll get there. Uncomfortable, that is. I promise, because I was very uncomfortable, and you'll hear a little bit of it in the message today. Come on, why don't you guys stand with us? Let's pray, because I think we need it right now. Father, we have come to praise you. We've come to lift you high, and we want to do that, God, in our song. But Lord, not just singing about you, but worshiping you, praising you. Let this be a vertical moment where our attention is drawn to you. Let the words of the songs, Lord, let this moment sharpen our focus on you, who you are, and all that you can do. God, I pray for your people today, because I know, Lord, a lot of people have walked in with unmet needs. So God, I'm trusting you to do what you can do. You're the one that can meet our needs. And Lord, we're going to do what we said last week, what bold faith does. We're going to thank you before we receive it. Amen? Amen. Come on, let's do that. It's good to have the Garcia girls here today. So we got one from Lexington and one from Tennessee. So they were both here, and I'm so glad that they were here with us today. And we told them that while I'm out, that they can come back every weekend while I'm away. And we even told them we'd pay their gas for them. How about that? You know, I think we can do that. So, because they are college students. So, hey, bold faith is what we've been talking about. Bold faith is believing when we don't see it. Bold faith is obeying when we don't understand it. Bold faith is giving when we don't have it. that should really stop on that one, okay? I'm not going to do a review, all right? Don't worry. Bold faith is persisting even when we don't feel like it. And last week we said that bold faith is thanking before we receive it. And today, wrapping out these components of bold faith as we've looked at the heroes of faith in Scripture and looked at different case studies and as applied to this idea of bold and audacious faith. Bold faith is trusting if we don't get it. Trusting if we don't get it. How many of you know Ephesians 3:20? Our ladies in their life study, I think it was last year, they did a whole study on Ephesians 3:20, just breaking it down piece by piece. This is what it says. It says, "Now to him who is able to do far more abundantly than all we ask or think, according to his power at work within us." That's what it says in the first part of that verse. Now to him. This is another example of where theology informs our faith, where good theology can strengthen your faith. This is who we present our request to, the one who is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or think. That's who, when you pray, When you ask God to intervene in your circumstances, that's who you're praying to. The one who can do exceedingly abundantly above all that you could ask or even imagine. But what if God doesn't just answer with what's better? You know, not a slight incremental upgrade to your request, but what if God responds with what He knows is best for you? Can you trust Him with His answer? Even if it's not exactly what you wanted, can you trust Him with His answer? Bold faith, trust God even when we don't get it. Bold faith, trust God even when you don't get what you asked for. And I'm going to tell you this, faith is risky. I've said this. There are risks involved in engaging your faith. In this respect, one of the greatest risks of faith is to your will, to your way, and to your time. The risk here, okay, think about it. The risk here is to my will, to my way, and my time. The risk is to my agenda, my expectations, where I don't always get what I think I need or even what I feel like I deserve. I believe it's in those kind of moments that we find out the tensile strength of our faith. You know what the tensile strength is? That's the how strong something is under pressure. This is how we find it. It's not just going through hard times. It's going through hard times and God keeping us there. It's quiet. Because we believe that God should always deliver us from difficulty, right? Can your faith survive the weight of unmet expectations? Will you trust God anyway? Let's get personal. Oh, wait, we already are personal. What happens when you don't get what you ask for? What happens? What happens when your expectations aren't met? For most of us, I believe it leads to confusion. Confusion. Because as followers of Christ, I believe that there are moments that we get confused. But you've got to understand what the source of our confusion is. And I know that Jesus said that the Bible says that our enemy, that Satan is the author of confusion. Okay? But I would tell you that sometimes the confusion that we go through is because God doesn't do what we think He should do, when we think He should do it, or how we think He should do it. So in that sense, the confusion is not from the pit of hell. The confusion is from within ourselves. God does something different and we can't seem to get a grip on it. When things don't go the way we think the plan should be, we feel disillusioned. Which brings us to this question that everyone asks: is God really in control? Is He really in control? And in our confusion, we begin to wonder if God's plans for us are really good. Are God's plans really good for me? Let's be clear. If you are going through a time of difficulty, through a time of suffering, I want to be crystal clear on this. Anyone who can offer a plausible reason for every tragic event is just blowing smoke. Because in the valley of the shadow of death, or when someone's faith is being tested, that's not the time for trite and breezy explanations. That's not the time to up a meme that just tells them to have faith and carry on. There are no easy answers when God's methodology in our lives involves suffering. And if you don't think that God's methodology in our lives involves suffering, then you haven't read the story of Joseph, or the story of Job, or the story of Paul. We don't always get to understand what God is doing. Okay, turn to your neighbor. You guys are real quiet this morning. I knew you wouldn't like this. I just knew it. So you need to turn to them and say, hey, you don't always get to understand what God's doing. Come on, let them know that. Come on, preach my sermon here. Look, this confusion that we feel encourages us to believe that chance and fate and luck are at work. But those terms are absolutely humanistic. That is a humanistic approach that suggests that only blind, impersonal, and spontaneous forces are at work in our lives. But aren't we supposed to believe that God is sovereign and in control? Isn't that what we say we believe? Isn't that part of our theology? But no, we expected God to follow our plan A, right? And not only is he supposed to follow our plan A, he's supposed to do it when we think he should do it. Our time frame. Come on, God, get with my program. I've never, ever prayed that in my life, Pastor. And you are a liar. No, you may not have used those words. But I guarantee you've prayed the essence of that prayer. Come on, God, get with my program. So instead of our plan A, God has plan 1. Plan number 1. And it is at his appointed time. Look, our faith starts to stall at the question of why. And with that, our confusion grows. Let me give you a personal, for instance here, okay? My surgery last August. Emergency surgery. I preached on Sunday morning, August 15th. It was a great service. I can't remember what I preached on. You can't either, don't worry. So, but it was life-changing, I'm sure. I'm sure it was life-changing. I'm positive that it was, okay? I really should have looked, before I did this message. Just, but I would have to look it up too. Don't worry, okay? Because I really don't remember. Everything's kind of a fog about that because that afternoon, I started having some really, really, really intense pain. I came to engage to our student ministry on that evening. As I was walking in from the car, Sarah was in the lobby, and she met me at the door, and she said, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" And I said, I don't know, I'm hurting real bad, and I'm thinking it's like gas pain, and that's you just don't want to admit that, and you don't want it to. If that's what it is, look, I'm not going to be a sissy and go to the ER with gas pain. All right, that's silly. Okay? Because if you go to the ER and the doctor says, you're not dying, it's just gas, you should be embarrassed. You should be embarrassed. Okay? But it was, to say the least, an inconvenient disruption in my life when the doctor came at around 10 or 11 o'clock at night and said, you have a perforated diverticulum. We need to do emergency surgery right now. And I'm sorry to say that you're going to have a colostomy. And I'm like, okay, I get the emergency surgery part, but that other part, that's the part I'm not really happy about. So I said, so it's going to be like temporary, right? And she says, well, yeah, 6 months. And I cannot tell you how long 6 months is until you have a colostomy. It's a long time. It's a really, really long time. Look, of course I asked God. And then, by the way, I was in the hospital for 12 days. because I'm an overachiever, evidently. And I asked the doctor in the ER. I said, I'm a pastor. I said, I got to preach on Sunday. I don't have a backup plan. Okay, I don't have an associate pastor that I can turn to. And I said, and she said, she kind of laughed. She goes, "Oh, you won't be preaching for like 6 weeks." And man, you talk about, that was almost worse than the other news. Because my mind was immediately scrambling, who's going to preach for 6 weeks? And I looked at Gina and she's like, nope. Nope. I thought, well, maybe Sarah. Nope, not Sarah, okay? And then the Lord just provided week after week after week. And we had 6 wonderful speakers, starting with my son, who flew in from Texas and preached on that Sunday that I was still in the hospital. And then just the speakers from there. I think the next was our picnic and at our church at the park. And Gina actually spoke at that. And then, but the Lord just had it all worked out. He just had it all worked out. But listen, guys, of course I asked God why. Yes, there was confusion because I had a plan. I was supposed to be starting a whole new series, Thriving in Babylon. You guys remember that? That one? Yeah, okay. All right, you remember the series. All right, but I had this whole plan, and it was totally disrupted. It was, not just disrupted, it was destroyed. Of course I asked God why, and I didn't get an answer. So if you think that pastors, are somehow, that we have some kind of supernatural insight that you don't have, that we get the whys that you never get because, we're reverends, because we're ordained ministers or whatever, not true. God did not tell me why he was allowing me to go through this, but God, and he didn't clarify why I was going through it. He only assured me that he was in control. In fact, that is the singular takeaway, the singular lesson for me through this part of my faith journey. And it has been part of my faith journey because I've had to trust God in ways that I never had to trust him before. The truth is, I would have avoided this route that God has me on if I'd have known. Wouldn't you? Yeah, of course you would. Because nobody likes to be inconvenienced. No one chooses suffering. But most certainly, listen to this, we choose our response to suffering. We choose our attitude. We choose to follow what we feel instead of walking by faith and following Jesus into the storm. Your feelings, based on your perspective, are an inaccurate way to determine what God is up to. I promise you. And if we stall and we can't get past the question why, are you listening to me? If we stall and we can't get past the question why, it leads to confusion. And confusion leads us to complaining. I told you I was going to go here today. So get ready. If you thought that was rough on you, here we go, okay? Because let's approach it this way. Gene and I have noticed a trend in advertising lately. You may have caught it too, but this is a trend. Listen to it. You deserve an upgrade. You deserve a better plan. You deserve the best plan. You deserve a break today. You deserve to have it the way you want it. You deserve a good night's sleep. I've lost count of how many commercials contain the word deserve. Deserve. You deserve this. Suffice it to say that the word is used in everything from banking to cell phone commercials to mattresses, new car purchases, and jewelry, and even eating out at restaurants. You deserve. What are advertisers appealing to? Our sense of entitlement. The belief that we should get what we think we deserve. We're being told that to always have it your way is a reasonable approach to all things. That's what you're being sold. That this idea that it's absolutely reasonable for you to have it your way in all things. Life should cater to you. It should cater to your wants and to your desires. But isn't that the very notion, the very idea that most responsible parents try to disavow their children of? And they do it with this: the world doesn't revolve around you. Am I right? Someone is over there. I never heard that before in my life. Okay, thank you for that confession. I heard that, Sue. Okay? I've never heard that. Or as Rick Warren put it in the very first line of the very first chapter of The Purpose-Driven Life, it's not about you. And I'm telling you, I'm going to stop here. Let me talk to parents for just a moment. You need to drive this truth home with not just, and look, it's not just the young generation. It's not just the Gen Xers. It's not the Gen Zers. It's all of us, friends. But our children need to know, our children must know that it's not about you. It's not about catering to everything that you want and desire when you want and desire it. Because if you don't teach them that hard truth, they're going to find out someday that they are not the center of the universe. And it will be incredibly hard on them. It starts with you. It's a hard truth for a generation that's used to selfies, to being all about them. It's a hard truth for a generation of near narcissists. So what can a sense of entitlement lead us to spiritually? If we have a sense of entitlement, what does it lead to spiritually? How does it affect our relationship with God? Well, we revert to complaining, just like children. Think about some of the sources of your complaining. Confusion, grief, unmet expectations. That's just a trifecta right there. But it's worth, and I think it's worth noting, because there's a little bit of confusion, I believe, on this. It's worth noting that there's a difference between a complaint in Scripture and a lament in Scripture. And I want to show you this. Because in the book of Exodus, we read how the Israelites complained in the wilderness. Just one example from Exodus 16. If you want, you can go there. We're just going to look at a couple verses there. But Exodus 16, if you've got the YouVersion app, these scriptures are there. 1 month, but just listen to me here, okay? Because 1 month after God's powerful and miraculous deliverance from Egypt, 1 month after God set them free from slavery in Egypt, 1 month later, it says in verse 2, the entire community of Israel began to complain about Moses and Aaron. And I want you to see how Moses responds in verse 3. Exodus 16, verse 3. If only, they said, if only the Lord had killed us back in Egypt. Are you hearing this? If only God had killed us back in Egypt. They moaned. They moaned. There we sat around. Listen to this nostalgia. There we sat around pots filled with meat and ate all the bread that we wanted. But now you brought, oh, and by the way, we were in slavery. But that's beside the point. You know, we had meat and bread, and it was wonderful. But now, Moses, you have brought us into this wilderness to starve us to death. I want you to know how God responds to complaining. Anybody ready for how God responds? You know how God responds? He promises them manna. He promises them, and later on he promises them meat, quail to be specific. Pick it up at verse 6 here. Exodus 16, verse 6. So Moses and Aaron, they said to all the people of Israel, by evening you will realize that it is the Lord who brought you out of Egypt. In the morning, you're going to see the glory of the Lord because he has heard your complaints, which are against him, not against us. He says, what have we done that you should complain about us? Verse 8, then Moses added, the Lord will give you meat to eat in the evening and bread to satisfy you in the morning, for he has heard your complaints against him. What have we done, Moses said. He questions, what have we done? Yes, your complaints are against the Lord, not against us. He says it like 3 or 4 times there. You're not complaining to us, you're complaining to God. I cannot tell you in 38 plus years of ministry how many times I've wanted to say this very thing. When people come and complain to me, you know, you're not complaining to me, you're complaining about God. Now, I'll own what I do, but there have been a lot of things that people complain about that God is doing. I mean, don't you think wouldn't you be just a little hesitant to complain to God? Just a little hesitant? Come on, if you don't, because I know I'm not telling the whole story, because some of you are going, well, yeah, but that's not only how God responded. You're exactly right, because God responded also because they continued to complain and they continued to disobey. God responded pretty harshly. Some people died because they were complainers. Woo! How many of you are glad we got the God of the New Testament now? God, I'm so grateful for the God of the New Testament. I'm so grateful that we're not under the law, we're under grace now. I'm just going to tell you, I think, you know what would cure this problem of complaining? If just one person would die. If God would just take out one complainer, then everybody else will go, oh, not me. Not me. Nope. I'm grateful, God. You're the man. You are God, and I am not. You just do, right? Look, a complaint is an accusation against God. A complaint maligns his character and his intent. It maligns his character and intent. A lament, okay, because here's the difference. Because if you read the Psalms, you're going to read David. David writes some things that sound a lot like complaining. We just call it a different name. We call it a lament. Why do we call it that? Because a lament is a complaint that's brought to God, but its confidence is still in God's character. Totally different. Instead of questioning God's character, the lament doesn't question God's character. A lament involves praying, would sound something like this. God, this situation doesn't seem to line up with who I know you are. But in spite of what I feel, I still believe that you are good, loving, faithful, and kind. Come and intervene in my circumstance. Come and intervene in my life. Like Job, if you don't think that Job had a lament, you haven't read his story lately. But like Job, in all of his suffering and loss, yet will I praise him. Yet will I praise him. But our default position is complaining. Our default position is not praise. Our default position is complaining when things are inconvenient, when things don't go the way we think they should. It's our go-to attitude. It's our go-to attitude. And it happens when we believe that things aren't going the way, I'll just have to say it again. My will, my way, my time. Come on, I want you to do this with me. come on, do this with me. Come on, I want you to point here. My will, my way, my time. Confusion can quickly lead to complaining. And if you hang out in the complaint department long enough, I believe it leads to despair. Okay? It leads us, which is, we're moving so far from faith as we go from confusion to complaining to despair. And let me tell you what despair does. Despair turns our attention on, you got it, on us. It turns our attention on ourselves. Despair fixates on our less than ideal circumstances. But friends, you don't want to be like the Israelites, delivered from slavery in Egypt, but 1 month later, already wishing that they could go back to being slaves. Are you kidding me? On your journey, you're on your journey, but you're forgetting what God did just a month ago. So where's the exit from the complaint department? Heard a great story about a guy who met with his psychiatrist. He was having this recurring dream every night. He said to his psychiatrist, he says, I have this weird dream every single night, over and over and over again. For weeks now, I've had this dream. And in this dream, I'm in a locked room. I can't get out. But there's a door, and the door has a sign on it. And I try to push on that door. I try to push on the door with all my strength. And in my dream, I'm straining. I'm sweating. I'm straining. But no matter how hard I push, no matter how hard I try, that door will not budge. The psychiatrist thought for a few moments and jotted down a note, and then he asked, interesting, this is very interesting. Give me a few details about the room, and what about that door? What does that sign on the door say? The patient replied, the sign says pull. It says pull. And some of you, I just described some of you. You've been pushing, but you're not reading the instructions. The instructions say, just pull it. Sweetie. For those of you that are new to our fellowship, that's code for dummy. I mean, that's what we do. We push our circumstances. We push our agenda. We push it and we push it. And God says, set your agenda aside and trust me. Because that's what bold faith does. Bold faith does not hold on to, it doesn't cling to my will, my way, and my time. If you're looking for an exit out of the complaint department, you got to read and follow the instructions. That's where we get correction for our complaining and clarity for our confusion. Let's talk about clarity. Reading the Bible, and listen carefully to me. Reading the Bible won't solve all your problems. Following Jesus doesn't exempt you from problems. But bold faith is developed in the valleys. It's developed when the situation looks impossible. Bold faith is developed when things look hopeless and when the tide has turned against us, when the storms are raging and you're tempted to ask yourself, why? Why is this happening to me? That is the pivot moment, friends. To you either pivot toward confusion and complaining and despair, or you pivot in faith to God. Here's a little bit of clarity. What if the storm is God's way of getting your attention? The storm, our troubles, God trying to get our attention. What if the storm is a test? Because last time I checked, there's this thing that happens. It's called the testing of our, I better say it again so you can say it. It's the testing of our faith. But is the testing of our faith for God's verification purposes? Let's see. I'm gonna test Josh Marshall today. Hey guys, he calls over, all the angels and says, "Hey guys, watch this, guys. I'm gonna test Josh Marshall's faith." So is God just verifying that you've got faith? Is that what he's doing? Or is the testing of your faith for your benefit? You don't think that God already knows the tensile strength of your faith? He already knows that. He already knows how weak or how strong your faith is. He doesn't need you to put you through a test to figure that out. He puts you through the test because it's for your benefit. How do I know that? James chapter 1, verse 2. Dear brothers and sisters, when troubles of any kind come your way, consider it an opportunity for joy. No way. James has this wrong. Clearly, he's not writing under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit. James is just blowing smoke here because I've gone through things. I've had situations in my life. Not too long ago, I had a situation in my life. I'm going through a situation in my life. I'm having surgery on Tuesday. I'm in the midst of a situation in my life where I'm thinking, this is not an opportunity for joy. I had a colonoscopy on Friday. That is not an opportunity for joy. And here's the other little bit of good news for everyone, since we're all on my journey together. Here's another bit of good news. I have to do the same thing on Monday. I've got to go through all of that prep work again for surgery on Tuesday. Yay me. I do not see this as an opportunity for great joy, and yet God does. Let me just read it again. James 1, verse 2. Dear brothers and sisters, maybe he's being a little snarky when he says dear, because I might be reading kind of emotionally into this, but dear brothers and sisters, when troubles of any kind come your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy, sweetie. Verse 3 says, for you know that when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow. So let it grow. For when your endurance is fully developed, you will be perfect and complete, needing nothing. You can't tell me that troubles of any kind are not for our benefit. It's not about God testing the tensile strength of your faith. It's God creating an opportunity for your faith to grow. Totally different. Anybody can trust God when things are going great. When the sun is shining and the sky is blue. When it's a beautiful 76 degrees outside and there's only a gentle breeze blowing for smooth sailing. Faith is trusting that even if you don't get the perfect day that you requested, God has a better idea, a far, far better idea. After all, He's the one who can do abundantly more than you could ask or think. Whatever happens, God is sovereign and He's in control. Nothing that you are going through has slipped by Him. This is what the Word reveals. Okay, if you study this, you're going to find this out. God never says oops. He never says, ooh, I missed that. How'd that happen to Jeff? Hey guys, had I stepped away from the throne for a moment and there's never a sign in heaven that says, be back in 5 minutes. I've gone to bless somebody that sneezed. Okay? Never says that. You'll never find that sign on heaven's door. God's always in control. He has sovereignly surveyed and approved every event in your life. You may not know why. You may never know why. But bold faith doesn't get hung up on that question. That's why Job can say, though he slay me, though he kills me, yet will I praise him. That's how Job can say, if you read it in the first chapter, and his wife says to him, you need to curse God and die. Thanks, dear. Just what I needed to hear. And he says, no. He says, I'm going to continue to trust God. I'm going to trust the one who is in control. We may not know why, but we do know that our pain is no accident. Our pain is no accident to him. He is in control, and like we heard last week, he rides on the storm. He rides on the storm. This is the truth that brings clarity. It's good theology that brings clarity to us. It's truth that brings clarity to our circumstances. And listen, I'm just going to tell you, the clarity that we need is not the answer to why we're going through the storm. The clarity that we need is to help us to see who's with us in the middle of the storm. That's the clarity I need. Oh, come on, I expected a shout there. Come on, I might have goofed it up somehow, so I better say it again. The clarity you need is not why you're going through the storm. The clarity you need is who is with you in the middle of the storm. That'll sound better on the live stream. Thank you. We'll edit your lack of response out. The clarity we need is to see the one who's walking on the waves. That's the clarity we need. Clarity's good. But what we need most is simple faith in God. Listen carefully to me. We need a faith that's hardy. Hardy. I know. When's the last time you used that word? Hardy. It's so old-fashioned. But friends, it's a trait that is in short supply in this day and age. Because the root word of hardy is hard. That's the root word, hard. The dictionary defines hardy this way. Capable of enduring difficult situations. Capable of enduring difficult conditions. Merriam-Webster defines it as hardy as bold, brave. And it can also mean this, audacious or brazen. Accustomed to dealing with fatigue or hardships. We need hardy faith, bold faith. Because the man or woman of faith, we need to be the kind of men and women of faith who resolve to stand firm, rooted in purpose, maintaining emotional, physical, and spiritual health, and remaining productive in spite of the conditions around us. God wants you to thrive. God wants to help you to thrive even in the difficult circumstances. Gina told me not too long ago, she says, you've done some of your best preaching while you've been going through this. Of course, I don't know if her thought was, hey, why don't you just keep that colostomy bag? I mean, it seems to be working for you. I'm thinking, no, that's not what it is. I'm just thinking God's taking me and you on a journey together. Sorry, if that's way too much personal information, too bad. It's just the way it is. Okay, I have to hear your stuff. You got to hear my stuff. So, all right. Look, we desperately need a faith that's resilient. A faith that can stand the test. Amen? Because without faith, it's impossible to please God. Hebrews 11:6. If you're not walking by faith, you're not pleasing him. Ooh, I better say that. If you're not walking by faith, then you're not pleasing him. Guys, listen, the day that we live in, all the stuff that's going on, not just COVID, but that, yes, and all the other things, all the unrest, all the uncertainty, everything that's going on, don't you realize that for you and me, for people who say that They are men and women of faith. We've got to have not just garden variety faith, we've got to have bold faith. We've got to have this brazen and audacious faith that just takes God at His word, that believes and trusts. No matter what's happening around us, no matter what's happening in our culture, no matter what's happening in the world, no matter what's happening on the border of Ukraine and Russia, no matter what's happening in some lab in China, no matter what's happening in Washington, D.C., no matter what's happening in Frankfort, Kentucky, no matter what's happening next door, we need to have bold faith that trusts God, that takes Him at His word, because bold faith is trusting even if you don't get it. I want you to hear this instruction from Hebrews chapter 10. Listen to this, and it starts at verse 35. Hebrews 10:35. Listen to this. So do not throw away this confident trust in the Lord. You have that. That's a choice. You either retain and keep this confident faith, or you throw it away. Remember, he says, the great reward that faith brings you. Patient endurance is what you need right now so that you will continue to do God's will. Then you'll receive all that He has promised. Verse 37 says, for in just a little while, the coming one, that's talking about Jesus, will come and not delay. There is going to be another advent, friends. Jesus is coming back. I don't know. I'm not a super duper prophecy preacher. You should already know that by now. I don't run around telling you that Jesus is coming back tomorrow or next week or next month or next year. I don't do that because the Bible tells us not to. Okay? Yes, there are signs of the times. I'm not in denial about that. I'm just telling you that God can come back in any moment. And He's going to come back because He's going to keep His promise to come and take us to be where He is. Verse 37 says, listen to it again. For in just a little while, the coming one will come and not delay. And my righteous ones will live by faith. But I will take no pleasure in anyone who turns away. But come on, listen to verse 39. But we are not like those who turn away. We are not like those who turn away from God to their own destructions. We are the faithful ones. We are the faithful ones whose souls will be saved. Isn't that awesome? Come on, don't you want that said of you? I am the faithful one. Bold faith trusts that God is with us in the storm and that He's working through all of our circumstances. No matter what happens, we're just going to keep walking by faith, trusting and obeying as we follow Him. So bold faith is believing when I don't see it, obeying when I don't understand it. Bold faith is giving when I don't have it. Bold faith is persisting when I don't feel like it. It's thanking before I receive it. And bold faith is trusting even if I don't get it. Bold faith doesn't collapse and fold under unmet expectations or disappointments, friends. It doesn't collapse under the weight of unmet expectations or your disappointment. Bold faith doesn't blow away in the wind and sink below the waves. Why not? Because bold faith trusts even when we don't get it. Because we believe, listen to this, we believe God can do anything, you know. Far more than you could ever imagine or that you could ever dream of. Far more than you could ever imagine or guess or request in your wildest dreams is how Eugene Peterson paraphrases Ephesians 3:20. And God does it not by pushing us around, but by working within us, His Spirit, deeply and gently working within us. Bold faith believes God Bold faith believes God knows what's best and that he can work all things for our good. Romans 8:28. So how do you need to pray today? Are you in the midst of a situation? Are you in the midst of a storm? Is your faith being tested right now? Is there something going on in your life? If you're with us online, listen, this is a critical moment. Don't check out on us right here, okay? Because in this moment, I believe we have to respond to the truth that we've heard. Okay? We don't always rush the altars anymore, okay? But I'm just going to tell you, this response, what you decide in this moment is important, because let's say you have two responses today. You either embrace your faith and decide to trust God in spite of what you feel or think or see or, okay, what you're hearing. You decide, I'm going to trust God even if I don't get it, okay? Or you throw your faith away. You push it away, you reject it. So if it was two choices, which choice do you make today? What choice do you make today? Stand with me, come on. God, here I am. In this moment, Lord, I realize I've got a decision that Lord, I know some people have already made this decision. They've already said, I'm gonna hold on to my faith. I'm gonna trust God. I'm gonna keep my hand in his nail-scarred hand. Pastor, I'm gonna trust God. But there might be some here that have maybe this week, maybe you pushed your faith away. Maybe you rejected it. Maybe it's because of what. Maybe it's because of your will or your way or your time. But in this moment, if you've kind of come to your senses and you realize that, hey, that's no way to live. I want to be a man or a woman of faith. I want to have that hardy, that resilient faith, that bold faith. I need that right now. Come on, if we've rejected faith, then really what we've done is we've rejected God. We've rejected his way. And if that's where you are right now, whether you're watching us online or whether you're in the building today, come on, that is, like we said last week, that's the essence of sin. Doing life our way instead of his way. So let's ask him to forgive our sin. Let's ask him for a new start, a new beginning, and let's pledge our faith to trust in him, even if we don't get it. Come on, God, I come to you. Here I am. And Lord, you know my heart already. You know whether I've been resilient in my faith or whether I've rejected it. You already know that, God. And if I've rejected it, Lord, I'm asking you to forgive me. If I've pursued my will, my way, my time, then God, I don't want to live that way any longer, because I know that what you want for my life is better. It's best. So I'm asking you, God, I want your will for my life. And I'm asking you to forgive me for my rebellion. Forgive me for what I've done. And I'm asking you for a brand new start as I put my faith in you, as I trust in you, Jesus. And we're going to start right here, guys, right at the cross. Jesus, I believe that you died on the cross for me. I believe that you took my sins on the cross. I believe that, and I trust what you did. I believe that what you did in that moment it was once and for all, so that none of us have to make up for all the bad things that we've done or said or thought, but just trusting, putting our faith in you, Jesus, believing what you've done for me. And I thank you, Jesus, that the story doesn't end at the cross, but it continues to an empty tomb. Because I believe that you are risen today. And I believe, Jesus, that because you're risen today, you've conquered sin. You've conquered death. And God, I'm going to trust that. I'm going to trust the finished work of Calvary. I believe and I trust in you, God. I'm not going to trust my way, my will, or my time. I want your will for my life. Amen? Amen. So the best cure for a complaining spirit is not a 2x4 to the side of your head or a kick in the seat of your spiritual pants, although that might be what it feels like today. The best cure is an overdose of thanksgiving and praise. That's the best cure. Because when we despair, our attention is on us. But when we sing his praise, our attention turns to him. When we worship, in spite of what we feel, in spite of what we see, when we worship, our despair breaks and gives way to joy. I believe this is the intersection where our faith needs to T-bone the pity party train. This is where we need to crash the pity party and to celebrate God's faithfulness instead. Can you praise him even if you feel a little disappointed? And by the way, when you feel that whiny, complaining attitude coming on, you've got a choice. Choose joy. Don't choose complaining, choose joy and praise him with your whole heart. And if you need clarity about who's in charge, ask the Holy Spirit to confirm God's good work in your life.